Sure. A little bit about myself. I am not a QA. I'm a business analyst actually, and I'm working in a search engine marketing company in New York. And one of the reasons that I'm thinking of taking this class, or I've come to this demo, is because we have a lot of ETL concepts and ETL testing that goes on in my organization, and I just find myself a little hazy on these concepts. So my expectation is just to have a clearer understanding of data warehousing concepts. And by the way, I just successfully completed Microsoft certification for a junior DBA. I just took the MT exam and cleared it. So I do have some knowledge about databases and how to implement databases. But as such, the different kind of schemas or dimensional modeling, I don't know if we will be going in details about that, but that's what really I'm coming from, and that's what I really want to learn.
Yeah, definitely, Payal. We'll be helping you with that, and definitely be whatever the topics that you actually stressed during your introduction. And we are going to talk about each one of them, and then we'll give you a demo about how we are going to actually present this course if you're actually willing to learn from us. And we are going to give you a demo of maybe for 30 to 35 minutes. So we'll talk about what is an ETL testing and what is an ETL process and what is a data warehouse and what is a database and all those things. We will talk about it, and we will discuss about all those things in a bit. And how our ETL testing will help data warehousing to achieve the quality and all those things. We will understand about it. So
I just have one. I'm sorry to interrupt you. I have one question here. The contents of this course, I was just going through them, and are we just doing manual testing here, or we'll be learning some automated tools too?
Yes. So in case of ETL testing, we don't have any automation tools as such in the real time, which actually being used to validate the ETL data and all those things. It's completely the manual testing, which will be carried out by using SQLs. So you need to write an SQLs, different SQLs to validate the data between in your ETL process, as well as to validate the data between your BI process as well. So completely the data warehousing testing is carried out by the manual process, that is by using your SQLs. And we have some tools which is actually to do this kind of work as an automated way, but a lot of tools which are there in the market are not so popular, and most of the clients are not using that tools because those tools are very limited and you don't have sophisticated scope for them to actually test and then to achieve the quality. So we don't have any automation tools as such, and it's completely the manual testing which will be carried out on an ETL process or a data warehousing process.
I do understand that we will be learning the basic concepts of data warehousing, and I think that is great. But in addition to that, will we also touch base on the different SQL commands and how to really write complex queries? Because as a business analyst, I'm not really well acquainted with writing really complex queries like joining 3 or 4 tables, and that's where I feel I'm lagging behind. So will we actually touch base on that?
Yes, I'm going to actually present that and whatever the things that we are going to discuss during the course and how we are going to understand about the course and everything. So probably maybe after the demo you can come up with the things in case if we are not going to cover any of the topics. I'm going to give you like what we are going to cover in the course as well, and I'll apart from what you have seen, and I'm going to present myself, and then based on that you can come up with your questions.
Okay, great. Thanks, Karthik.
Yeah. So the first thing is to understand about the data warehousing. So one should have an understanding, I hope you can see my screen, and one should have an understanding about what is a database and how many types of databases are available in the market and all those things. So a database is something that it's a software product which stores the data in the form of tables. And so we have, in the technical terms, we call the database as a DBMS. So the DBMS is nothing but the database management system, which stores the data in the form of tables. And eventually the DBMS is called as an RDBMS. RDBMS stands for a Relational Database Management System. Why we call the database as a Relational Database Management System is because you will have a relationship which is created between the tables. That's why we are going to call that as a RDBMS, Relational Database Management System. We are going to express the relationship between the tables. That's why it is called as an RDBMS. And when we talk about different RDBMS products which are available in the market, so as you might be aware about all these things, so that is your Oracle is one thing which you have a very popular RDBMS product. And along with this, Oracle is from Oracle Corporation. You have SQL Server. SQL Server is from Microsoft. And you have DB2. DB2 is from IBM. And you have Sybase. Sybase is from SAP. And you have Teradata. So Teradata, which is also from Teradata Corporation. You have a lot of, apart from this, you have a lot of DBMS products or the database products which are available in the market. So all these database products will store the information in the form of tables, and this, in order to communicate with the database, so in order to write the data into the database, in order to read the data from the database, so to do all these kind of actions, you need a language. You need a language to communicate with a database. So the IBM people in 1970s, they have come up with a language called as an SQL. So SQL stands for a structured query language. SQL stands for a structured query language, which is used to communicate with a database. So the structured query language is actually divided into multiple types, and when we talk about the SQL, is being broadly classified into 5 types. So one is called as a DDL. DDL stands for a data definition language. Data definition language. And another is you have a DML, which is also called as a data manipulation language. Data manipulation language. And you have another classification called as a DRL, data retrieval language. Data retrieval language. And another classification is about the TCL. TCL is called as a transaction control language. Transaction control language. So, and the other thing is about the DCL, data control language. So how you are going to control the data between the different users. So in the database, that can be done by using a data control language statements. So as you know that the SQL is a combination of all the commands, and all the commands is classified into one type of a language. So as the name indicates, that DDL stands for a data definition language. All the commands are used to define the tables. So suppose if you want to define the tables, if you want to define the other type of database objects, something like views and all, we are going to use a language, data definition language. So the data definition language will contain the different commands called as a create, drop, alter, truncate. All these kind of different SQL statements are classified under the data definition language. So when you talk about
you're forgetting about views, I think. Views is also a DDL, right?
No, I'm talking about the statements. Tables and views, these are the different types of database objects. Another about the sequences and all those things. So I'm just talking about the statements. So the data definition language is something that which is used to define the tables. You can define the views, you can define the sequences, you can define the other type of database objects like synonyms and everything. So all these, for defining all these kind of a database objects, you need a create, drop, alter and all these things. So on a broader level, we call these statements as a DDL statements, which is nothing but which is used to define some database object. That's why we call them So you can use this create statement to define the table. You can use the same create statement to define a view. You can use a create statement to define a sequence and all those things. So view and tables, these are all the database objects. We won't call them as a DDL. I mean, we won't call them as a DDL command as such. It's called as a database object. So create, drop, alter, truncate. Truncate is to truncate the data. So create is used to define the tables, views, and everything. You can use it. And drop is a command which can be used to remove the tables and views from the database. And you also have something like, so whenever you want to change the structure of the table by adding a column or removing a column or changing the data type of a column, so all those things can be done by using a alter statement. And the truncate is used to remove the data permanently. So all these statements are called as a DDL statements. We call them as a DDL statements. And the next, another classification language is about the DML. So the DML, as the name indicates, that manipulation, which is used to modify something in the database. So whenever you want to modify the data in the tables, or whenever you want to add a row to the database, or whenever you want to delete something from the database, you are going to use a DML statements. So when you say DML statement, we have a different types of DML statements. So that is called as an insert, which is used to add a row, update, which is used to update the columns and the information in the database, and delete, which is used to remove the data from the table, and you have the other type of command called as a merge, which is a combination of insert and update, So all these things which will be used to modify the data in the tables, that's why these commands are called as a DML commands. So it's called as a data manipulation language commands. Now you have defined the data in it, and at the same time you have inserted a data, you have added a data to the table. So now the question is that how are you going to read the data from the table? So for a reading of the data, we are going to use another type of language commands called as a data retrieval language. So the data retrieval language is something that which is called as a select. Select is a statement in the SQL which is used to read the data from the tables. So you can read the data from a table, and at the same time you can read the data from multiple tables as well at the same time. So select is a command which is used to retrieve the data from the tables. So that is called as a data retrieval language. So to read the data, we are going to use this DRL. So and the other type of a thing is called as a transaction control language. So the transaction control language is about which is used to control your transaction, like committing of the data, rolling back of the data. There are three types of statements. One is called as a commit, another is called as a rollback. So whenever you are adding the data to the tables, or whenever you are updating the information in the tables, so to apply the changes permanently or to undo the changes, we are going to use a TCL. So that is a transaction control language. Commit is something that which is used to apply the changes permanently. Rollback is something that which is to undo the changes, or to undo the changes. So this is called as a commit and rollback, are the two statements in the TCL which is used to control the transaction. A transaction is nothing but the group of DML statements is called as a transaction. So to always control the transaction, we use a commit and then the rollback. And the data control language, in a database you can have a different users. So when you want to control the data between the users, to assign the privileges on a particular object, or to take back the privilege from the particular object, so we are going to use two commands called as a grant and revoke. Grant and revoke are something that whenever you want to assign a privilege on a particular database object, either it can be a table or a view or some other thing, you want to assign the permissions to the other users who are there in the database to access it. So that is called as a grant and revoke, are the two commands which will be used to assign the privileges and to take the privileges.
Are we forgetting one command in DCL, which is deny?
Deny.
Yeah. I think there are three of them: grant, revoke, and deny.
Maybe you might have seen in the SQL server, but
Yeah.
we don't actually use that in the Oracle database. I mean, Oracle
Oh,
database, we don't
okay.
have.
I'm not
Maybe
familiar with
the,
Oracle. I just have used SQL Server.
yeah, but we have only two types of DCL commands here. Maybe
Got it.
an extra statement might be there, but I'm not sure about it. I
Okay.
was actually talking about the Oracle terms, like what are the different commands we see it.
Got it.
So grant and revoke are the two things which is used to grant the privileges and to take the privileges from it. So SQL is a common language. So when you want to communicate with Oracle, when you want to communicate with SQL Server or any other database, so you can use a SQL as a common language to communicate. So here and there, syntaxes and all, everything is same. Here and there, some enhancements which will be available in Oracle. Some features might be available, which are available in SQL Server may not be available in the Oracle as such. So we are going to, yeah. So, but the native SQL language, whatever you use to communicate with the database, is same for all the databases. So if you want to communicate with Oracle or SQL Server or a DB2 Sybase, here and there some syntaxes will differ, but the amount of, same kind of commands you use to communicate with the database. So in all the databases we use. So the SQL is, you can call it as a universal language to communicate with all your databases which are available, right? So that is about the SQL part. So in order to understand the concepts about data warehousing, so we need a good amount of knowledge on the SQL and what is a database and all those things. And in order to succeed as a ETL tester as well, so you need a SQL language. So first we are going to touch base the SQL language and the things that we are going to understand in the SQL, and then later on we'll go and understand in the course also, later on we'll go and understand about the data warehousing concepts and what is a data warehouse, right? So in order to start with data warehousing and all those things, so now we understand that what is a database and how the database is being used, for storing the data. So now let's talk about the data warehouse. A data warehouse is something that a collection of data from different source systems. So you're going to collect the data from different applications and then you're going to store the data in the form of tables. So you're going to store the data in the form of tables. So in the simple terms, a data warehouse is nothing but the database which stores the data, and the data in the data warehouse is used for an analysis purpose. So I'm going to come back to that, what kind of analysis we are going to carry out on the data warehouse and why we are actually building the data warehouse and all those things. So in the simple terms, you can call a data warehouse as a collection of data which is stored in the tables and used for analysis purpose. So when you're actually building a data warehouse, you can store the data, you can choose your data warehouse as an Oracle database, or you can choose your data warehouse as an SQL Server database, or you can choose your data warehouse as a Teradata database. Any database can be chosen as a data warehouse. So as we think that the data warehouse is a database where the data is being stored. And now let's understand what kind of data that is being stored in the data warehouse, Even before to understand about what kind of applications we are going to extract the data, we need to understand the two terms here called as a OLTP system. Another is called as a OLAP system. So what is an OLTP system? So the OLTP system is nothing but the online transaction processing system, where frequent transactions are happening. A transaction is nothing but the insert, update, delete. So where you have an insert, update, delete operations are performing, those applications are called as a OLTP applications, online transaction processing application. To understand about the OLTP, practically we can understand the applications. So you can, practical example is that you can think about any e-commerce application, something like eBay or Amazon. So all these kind of applications where you are going to perform a frequent transactions, something like booking the orders, cancelling the orders, and updating the orders, deleting the orders. All these kind of transactions will be performed on these applications. And you can also think about your internet banking, which you actually use for any bank. That is also one type of a transaction-oriented applications, where all these applications are used for a daily operations for the customer or a business vendor. So it will be used for a daily operations. And
so
all
in
these
the
systems.
I'm sorry, in the OLTP, the data is really denormalized, right?
No, it's normalized. In fact, I mean it is.
It's normalized. It's the other way.
Yes.
Okay.
OLTP, the data is normalized, and OLAP, the data is denormalized.
Denormalized. Okay, got it.
Yeah. So all the OLTP systems, these are all called as an OLTP system. Practical examples are about your ATM withdrawal application is also one of the OLTP application. And you can also think about the sales agents. When you actually visit any retail store, the sales agents will be entering the orders. So that is nothing but the retail sales. That you can call it as a OLTP application. And your internet banking application is called as an OLTP application. All these applications are called as a OLTP, Online Transaction Processing System. And the OLAP is nothing but the online analytical processing. So these applications are used for an analysis purpose. So we'll talk about it, what is an OLAP system and how to understand that. So let me just give you a picture, how the data actually flows from the different OLTP applications into a OLAP system. Just assume that you have a different OLTP applications which are developed for your client or a customer, which is being distributed across the different databases altogether. And you are actually collecting the data from different databases and then storing it to a centralized place that is nothing but your data warehouse. So this is my data warehouse which I'm actually storing, where I'm actually storing the data for an analysis purpose. And you have different OLTP applications for your customer. Let's talk about the Citibank. And Citibank has an operations into APAC region, and they have into America, they have into Europe, and everywhere they have the operations. And do understand that the Citibank might have a different applications which might have developed to understand, to do their operations on a daily basis. For Europe, they might be having one application. And for America, they might be having one application which is being developed. And for a APAC region, maybe for an Asia Pacific region or for an India, so you can call it as one application which is being developed. So if you see my data which is used for a transaction purpose is being distributed across the multiple applications. And in the Europe, it might be stored in the SQL server. So the data might be stored in the SQL server. And in this, the data might be stored in the DB2 database, and here the data might be stored in the SAP system. So I have a different OLTP applications where my data is distributed across. So to carry out the analysis really on this OLTP system, it is a difficult task to carry out the analysis or to read the data. So that's why what we are doing is that we are going to integrate the data. That means we are going to collect the data from all these applications and then store into a centralized place. Okay? We are going to collect the data from all these and then store the data into a centralized place. So that is called as an enterprise application. The process of integrating the data from different applications and then storing into this is called as an ETL process. ETL stands for extract, transform, and load. So you're going to integrate the data from different OLTP applications and then integrating the data into a data warehouse. And this data warehouse, as I said earlier, it can be in any database. So the data which is available in the OLTP applications is not useful for an analysis purpose. Analysis means, suppose if you want to find out the profits which are being made out of Europe, which are being made out of how much revenue they are generating, and to calculate the growth for historical data and all those things. So these OLTP applications are not useful for analysis for following regions. So when you talk about the OLTP applications will be a shot of historical data. On all your OLTP applications will not store the historical data, it will always store the current data. So the practical example which you can understand about this is, so when you're actually thinking about your ATM application, when you go and take a mini statement out of that, so you hardly find the transactions, what you have done, maybe last 5 or 6 transactions, what you have done, but you'll not be able to find out the transactions, what you have done in the last year or the before last year. So the historical data will not be available, so we cannot carry out the analysis on the OLTP application. And the second reason is that, so as you said, like OLTP applications are normalized up to third normal form. So the normalizing the data means the data is distributed across the multiple tables. So when the data is distributed across the multiple tables, when the data is distributed across the more number of tables, then it becomes very difficult to read the data. It becomes very difficult to analyze the data. And you need to write a complex queries to do that. Retrieve the data. So that's why this is also one more reason that why we actually do not analyze the data in the OLTP systems. And also, since the data is distributed across the multiple different applications, so if you have to do analysis on the complete thing, it's a kind of a time-consuming process. You know, like if I have to calculate the global profits, what have been achieved by Citibank as a CEO. If somebody wants, if somebody wants to find out, they have to find out what is the profits they have made in Europe, what are the profits they have made in America, what are the profits they have made in APAC, and then they have to club it. So it's a kind of a time-consuming process to carry out the analysis on the multiple applications. So it's a time-consuming process. So you have a lot of disadvantages to carry out the analysis on the OLTP applications, and that's the reason we are going to integrate the data into a centralized place. And this centralized place will give you within a less time you can analyze the data, and then you can take the decisions. By analyzing the data, they are going to take the decisions whether to continue the products or to discontinue the products. There will be a changes in the business the way they do it. So that's why it's a time-consuming process. So we are integrating the data from all these applications, and you can call it as the heterogeneous applications, into a centralized database called as a data warehouse. So when you talk about the data warehouse contrastly, it will store the historical data. So you will store the historical data in the data warehouse, and at the same time the data will be distributed across the less number of tables. So that means it is a denormalized structure of data will be available in the data warehouse. Denormalized structure of data will be available in the data warehouse, and so you can write simple queries to analyze the data. So within a very less time you can access the data because the data is available in the single application or the single database which you can do that. So that's why the OLAP system have an advantages in analyzing the data rather than carrying out analysis on the OLTP applications. We carry out the analysis on the data warehouse. So the analysis in the data warehouse is generally done by the reporting tools. So your reporting tools are nothing but your BI tools, we call them. All these BI tools will generate the reports from the data warehouse, by reading the data from the data warehouse. So the process of generating the reports is called as a BI process. So we call it as a BI process. BI stands for Business Intelligence Process. So when you are going to talk about, you have a lot of BI tools and everything are available. All these tools will generate the reports by reading the data. Reading of the data is nothing but the selecting of the data from this and then generate the reports. So to integrate the data and to generate the reports, you have a different tools available in the market. So called as Etl Tools. There are a lot of ETL tools available in the market. So when you talk about Informatica Power Center is being the one, Informatica Power Center, and you have a data stage which is from IBM, you have a Ab initio, all these are all the different Ab initio, all these are all the different ETL tools which is used to integrate the data. And similarly, you have a lot of BI tools. BI tools, and in the simple terms, we call them as a reporting tools, and the other way we call them as a OLAP tools. OLAP tools. So all these tools will generate the reports from the data warehouse, and you have a different tools again. So Cognos, and you have a BO, Business Objects from SAP. You have OBIEE, Oracle Business Intelligence Enterprise Edition. And you have something like SSRS, SQL Server Integration Service, SQL Server Reporting Service, and you have MicroStrategy, and all those things are the different tools which is used to generate the reports. So when you talk about the data warehouse, a data warehouse is not a technology, rather it is called as a theory. It is called as a theory. So any data warehousing project, if you talk about, there will be one ETL tool which is being used, and you'll also have one BI tool which is being used. So ETL plus BI complete cycle is called as a data warehousing life cycle. We call it as a data warehousing life cycle. So here completely we are going to talk about the data that is being used. So the ETL process.
Crystal Reports, is that a BI tool?
Yes, it's also a BI tool.
And what about the open source Jasper?
Jasper can be used as an ETL as well as a reporting both.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jasper is also an open source tool, and you have some other tools like Pentaho, Talent, Tableau, ClickView. These are all the different things it comes into. You can Talent and Pentaho, these are all called as your ETL tools, and ClickView is your open source BI tool which will be used.
Okay, thank you.
So these are all the different things which we are going to, if you come across in the data warehousing process. So now the question is about the ETL. I mean, what is the job of an ETL tester, and what is the job of a BI tester? So when you talk about the data warehousing testers, we actually classify their role as a ETL testing and the BI testing. So as an ETL tester, one has to do when these tools have been used to integrate the data. So we need to validate, as an ETL tester, we need to validate the data which is available in all these applications is properly integrated into the data warehouse or not. So you are going to validate the data between your different OLTP applications and the warehouse. So that is going to be validated by using a ETL testing. So in the ETL testing, again, as I told, so completely the data validation which will be carried out by using the SQLs. So you're going to write a different select statements to validate the data, and you're going to validate the data in terms of different things. So you're going to validate the count of records between the, suppose let's say you have created a program, or your developers have created a program to read the data from source A. So to read the data, which reads the data from source A and then loads the data into target B. Source A, and let's say you are loading the data into target B. So now you have integrated the data from all these applications, and your target B is something that which you have there, which is there in the data warehouse. So what kind of testing you are going to carry out as an ETL tester? So you are going to validate the number of records present in the source is properly loaded or not, or whether your Informatica or any other ETL tool has discarded or rejected any records. So you are going to validate the number of records between the source and target are not, or same or not. That you are going to validate by using the count validation. And at the same time, you're also going to validate the data. So the data validation between the source A and target B, that you're going to validate. So in order to So in order to validate all these kind of things, so we are going to use SQL to validate. So you are going to validate the data between that, and you are going to validate any null validations which have happened, and you are going to validate whether it has loaded any duplicate records, whether it has loaded any duplicate records in the target table. So all these kind of validations which you are actually carrying out on the ETL testing ETL programs, which is called as a which you are going to carry out by using the SQLs. So that's why the SQL plays a important role in the ETL testing, which is a kind of a manual testing you are going to do it. So when you talk about the data validation, so that in the data validation you are going to compare the data for each column in the source with each column in the target. So you are going to compare the column level comparison will be done. Column level comparison will be done for a data validation. And at the same time, suppose maybe your ETL program when they design, it might have missed to load the data into few columns. So that you are going to validate by using a null validation. And at the same time, while loading the data, same record might have been loaded twice because of the any logic failure in the program and all those things that you are going to validate by using the duplicates. So you are going to carry out the different testing strategies. You are going to carry out the different test cases. You'll write and then carry out the ETL testing process. So since the ETL testing process is carried out by using the SQL, so we understand SQL and then we'll validate and how so ETL testing process will be carried out on a Informatica. So we are going to see how the Informatica is loading the data, and that Informatica related things we are going to understand how to test Informatica programs. We are going to understand how to test the Informatica programs. So that's an overview about the ETL testing, how you do it. And at the same time, once you load the data into your warehouse, your data is being represented in the form of reports. So that process is called as a business intelligence process. So as a data warehousing tester, one will be involved even in validating the data that is available in the reports, whether this is properly loaded in this is properly represented in the BI or not. That testing is called as a BI testing. So BI testing is a kind of a UI testing which you are going to carry out, which is a kind of a UI testing which you are going to carry out. And this UI testing you are going to perform, you are going to check the reports, whether the data in the reports is properly working or not, whether your reports are generating the values according to the different filters and different prompts or not. All those things you are going to do it. So here also you are going to perform the data validation in the reports, again by using the SQL, and by using the user interface you are going to validate whether the filters are working properly or not, or the prompts, we call them as a prompts in the reporting terminology. So whether the prompts are working fine or not, all the data is properly represented in, properly presented in all the browsers or not. All these kind of a testing, UI testing will be carried out. So the data warehousing testing is a combination of ETL testing as well as a BI testing. So somebody who joins as a tester, or maybe you want to test about your programs whether these are working fine or not, so you are going to perform two types of testing, that is called as a ETL testing and the BI testing. ETL testing and the BI testing. So this is what we are going to do as an ETL tester. And in order to understand about the ETL testing, so we are going to drive our course in such a way. First, we will understand about the SQL and what are the different things that we have to understand in the SQL. Then we are going to talk about the data warehousing, how the data warehousing is built and what are the advantages of the data warehouse and all those things. And we are also going to talk about the dimensional modeling technique. So how are you going to design the dimensional modeling technique, and how are you going to design the tables in the data warehouse? That we are going to understand. Then we are going to understand how the ETL testing process will be carried out in the ETL testing projects, and we are also going to see how the BI testing process will be carried out on the BI testing process. So this will be our course high-level topics where we are going to deep about them to understand each and everything. So the overall the course will take the 30 hours of time to understand each and everything, and meanwhile, and in order to understand the ETL testing, we are going to show you the demonstration on the Informatica Power Center, and to understand the BI testing, we are going to drive the BI testing by using a OBIE as a reporting tool. So we are going to show you both the things, how the ETL testing will be done and how the BI testing will be done, right? So that's a way we actually drive the course, right? So any questions so far?
Thanks, Karthik. This class was really very informative. I have a few questions. I understand that we are learning about ETL testing in this course, but excuse me, how can we really generalize the concepts that we learn in this course to other testing jobs, or so how can we really do that?
Other testing jobs, if you talk about other quality jobs like windrunner, automation testing and all those jobs.
Not just automation testing, but there are like several even manual testing jobs too. So how can we really take these concepts and apply it to other jobs?
Yeah, the one thing is about we are going to more concentrate on the how the ETL testing will be done in the data warehousing applications. But in this we are not going to cover most of such as how the enterprise application testing will be done, or how web application testing will be done, and all those things. But you can really take whatever the concepts that you learn and the types of testing you carry out, and the same kind of testing will be, same kind of a testing techniques will be applied, but the things that you learn in the data warehousing projects will be different when you actually go and test, when you actually go and work as a enterprise application tester in any web project or in any enterprise project. So the things will be different, and the way you actually achieve do the quality analysis will be same, but the things will be a little different when you are going to do that. But it's more concentrates about how the data warehousing and how the ETL testing and the BI testing is carried out, not about the other type of testing jobs.
Okay.
What you perform actually in the other testing roles.
Yeah, as I told you before that I live in New York City, and New York City it is, of course there are ETL testing jobs too, and quite a few, but there are also a lot of, Selenium is really in demand over here. So do you have do you teach Selenium, or
I don't actually teach Selenium. There are separate trainers for it. They will be taking the Selenium testing training, and if you have to do it, probably you have to do it as a separate course as such. But in this, we are not going to talk about much about the Selenium parts, Selenium and all those things.
Okay. And as far as the SQL, writing SQL queries is concerned, I am, as I told you, I'm not totally new to this field. If I have certain questions and I'm not able, if one of my queries is not working, can you help me in that, where I'm making a mistake or something?
Yeah, definitely. When we're actually driving the course, we actually drive the SQLs from the basics, and we'll also give you the environment where actually you can practice the SQLs and make yourself comfortable in the SQLs. And as you told, in order to understand about the joins, how you're going to do it, and how you're going to use aggregate functions, and everything will be discussed as part of it. And we are going to help you that on the SQL part, like whatever the questions that you have, and even if you have any questions on the job as well, we're going to even help you with that.
Okay, and another thing that I wanted to ask is about, these understanding these concepts is great, but actually understanding it with a project, a real-time project, that will be really, really helpful. So would you do that?
Yes. So it's actually when we are talking about the ETL testing, or when we are talking about the dimensional modeling concepts. So the way we actually drive our course is by taking a real-time project, and then we'll understand all about what kind of table structures will be available and all those things. So through the project only, we are going to explain you how the data flow will be from OLTP applications to your warehouse, and what are the different stages that you're going to follow, and everything will be discussed, and it's a part of the project. And so we are going to take a sample project, and then we are going to drive this course on that.
Okay. Okay. Okay, thank you so much, Karthik. Thank you so much for spending this time with me, and it was really, really informative.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot. And you can drop your feedback to them, and then you can just let us know what are your next.
And this class, is it going to be every day, or how would it work?
Yeah, it depends, like based upon the other candidates' availability and all those things. We actually fix the schedule, and once the batch is formed, we'll be able to confirm you based upon the other candidates' availability and all those things. We'll confirm you about it. And if at all you guys are somebody is interested in only on the weekends, we'll take it on weekends, or if it is on the weekdays. So we are going to adjust the timings, maybe the EST evenings, and then we'll take the classes.
EST evenings, okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Take care. Bye-bye.